Karen calls after midnight and demands that I drive from another city to give keys to my property. It was 12:14 a.m. when my phone rang. At first, I thought it was an emergency call from family, but when I picked up, all I heard was a shrill, entitled voice. "This is Karen from the HOA," she barked. "We need the keys to your property immediately. Come drive down here right now." I was stunned. I lived almost 2 hours away in another city, and my house in the HOA neighborhood was just one of my late father's inherited properties. It was locked up, empty, and well-maintained. There was no logical reason anyone would need my keys, let alone in the middle of the night. The ridiculous demand. "Excuse me?" I asked, still half asleep. Karen huffed into the phone. "We are the HOA. We have the right to access all properties for inspections. There's a plumbing issue in the neighborhood, and we need to get inside yours. You need to come right now and hand over your keys. If you refuse, you'll be fined heavily and possibly evicted." Her words jolted me fully awake. Evicted? From property I owned outright? It wasn't even rented. The HOA didn't own my home. And most importantly, what kind of plumbing emergency requires entry at midnight? I calmly told her I wouldn't be driving 2 hours in the dead of night. "If there's an emergency," I said, "call a licensed professional. Otherwise, you're not getting inside." Karen screamed, "You'll regret this. The HOA controls everything." Then she hung up. The next morning, I didn't sleep much that night. By morning, I drove out to the property just to make sure nothing shady was happening. Sure enough, when I arrived, there were HOA board members standing near my gate, clipboard in hand, whispering among themselves. Karen stormed toward me. "About time you showed up. Hand over the keys so we can inspect the property. It's the rules. I pulled out the HOA contract my father had signed years ago. I had read it thoroughly after inheriting the home. Nowhere in it did it say the HOA had the right to enter my private residence without my consent. This," I said, waving the papers, "is the only agreement that matters. And according to this, you have no right to demand keys or access." Karen's face went red. "You're obstructing community management. We'll call the cops." When the cops came, to my surprise, she actually did call the police. When the officers arrived, Karen rushed up to them, shrieking about how I was violating HOA rules and refusing to cooperate. The officers turned to me. Calmly, I explained the situation, showed them my ownership documents, and handed over the HOA contract. I also mentioned the midnight call, which I had luckily recorded. The cops listened, then asked Karen one simple question. "Ma'am, can you point to the clause that gives you the legal right to enter his property or demand his keys?" Karen fumbled through her clipboard, flipping papers back and forth. Her confidence crumbled. It's an understood rule," she stammered. The officer shook his head. "That's not how the law works. This is private property. If you or anyone from the HOA attempts to enter without permission, you can be charged with trespassing." Karen froze. The smug grin she usually wore was gone. She looked like a child caught stealing candy. The turning point. The police gave her a stern warning and told the HOA board members to disperse immediately. I watched as Karen's little army scattered, their clipboards tucked away like defeated soldiers. But I wasn't done. I filed a formal complaint against the HOA for harassment and attempted intimidation. With the midnight call recording, the contract, and the police report, I had more than enough evidence. Within weeks, the HOA board faced legal scrutiny. Several members resigned, and Karen was stripped of her role. My lawyer made it clear that any future harassment would result in a lawsuit they couldn't afford to fight. The lesson. Standing in front of my property, one quiet evening, I looked out at the lake nearby and thought about how far things had escalated. All because someone thought authority meant ownership. Karen had believed the HOA controlled everything, including me. But the truth is, ownership carries rights that no HOA, no entitled neighbor, and no midnight phone call can take away. Final message for viewers. If you've ever been bullied or intimidated by people who hide behind titles or false authority, remember this. Know your rights, keep records, and never let entitlement scare you into submission. Because when you stand firm, even the loudest HOA Karen will crumble in the face of truth.